Welcome to the Ultimate Sports Podcast. Today is Tuesday, November 26, 2019. Today I'm going to recap yesterday's Monday Night Football game, as well as yesterday's college basketball, NBA, and NHL games. Look ahead to tonight's slate, as well as college football games for tonight as well. And then bowl projections for week number 14, as well as my predictions for the college football playoff rankings. Also, guess the lines for week number 13 of the NFL and my best bet of the day. Okay, Monday Night Football, it was no contest whatsoever. Ravens over the Rams, 45-6. The Ravens pretty much hit the over by themselves. Winners of 6 straight games, I believe it is now. They are 9-2 on the season. I actually think it's 7 straight. Yeah, it's 7 straight because they were 2-2. And the Rams dropped to 6-5. Lamar Jackson, 15-20, 169 yards and 5 touchdowns. Jared Goff, 26 of 37, 212 yards and 2 interceptions. Just a terrible game for the Rams and Jared Goff. And now everybody really is wondering if this is like the end of the Rams window. They clearly paid Jared Goff too soon. They trade for Ramsey. Part of me wonders if Ramsey's just like a loser. Like, he's only been on one good team in his whole life, which was the, meaning like one team that did good, which was the Jaguars team that upset the Steelers, in which the Steelers were clearly looking ahead to the Patriots, and then they had the big lead on New England. New England's looking ahead to the Super Bowl, obviously, and then New England comes back and beats the Jags, and then the next year, the Jags forget that Blake Bortles is their quarterback. They passed on Lamar Jackson in the draft. That looks like a disaster. God, if the Jaguars had Lamar Jackson, they're the best team in the AFC South. That's a hot take. And then Leonard Fournette would be in the Mark Ingram role. But the difference is that the Ravens have better receivers than the Jaguars do. That's the difference between the two teams. Although guys like Mark Andrews have had breakout years, and you have Marquise Brown making plays. Willie Snead came over from the Saints. He's caught a couple touchdowns last night. But yeah, that Ravens team is very well built, and you could argue, like, what if the Jaguars had lost like earlier in the playoffs or whatever? They probably would have gotten the quarterback in that draft. They would have had Sam Darnold or Josh Allen, whose team's 8-3, but I think is fraudulent. Lamar Jackson, who is the best player on, dare I say, the best team, and I think solidified himself as the MVP runaway front runner last night with that brilliant performance. Granted, the passing yard total was low. Meanwhile, he rushed 8 carries, 95 yards, and he had the big 29-yard run, which should have been a touchdown run, but he tripped before he was able to reach the end zone. You could just see the frustration in his face that he didn't get in the end zone. But yeah, Lamar Jackson, great player, and a lot of teams are probably regretting on passing him, like the Jaguars, like a team like the Titans maybe, but they probably still thought Marcus Mariota was the guy. And a lot of people probably did. And the thing with Bortles is that he had that one year where he went to the AFC title game. It was like Trubisky last year. And I think I know who that quarterback is this year, but I don't want to say his name until after the season, on a team that's clearly not that good, that's overachieving, courtesy of its good defense, and that's the reason why it's overachieving. And then I guarantee you next year that team is going to fall out of it, and that quarterback's going to regress. I don't think he'll be as bad as Trubisky this year or Bortles 2 years ago, but I could see a world where a certain team falls off and the quarterback falls off. And I don't want to predict who that's going to be yet, because I just need to see how their season finishes out and some other things that happen within the offseason. So that was enough NFL talking about Lamar Jackson and whatnot. So let's move on to college basketball. The slate yesterday was filled with a lot of neutral site games and these in-season tournaments. So Without further ado, here we go. New Mexico State over Colorado State 78-70 in overtime. New Mexico State 3-3, Colorado State 3-3. South Alabama over Northeastern 74-62. South Alabama 4-2, Northeastern 3-3. South Alabama, by the way, was picked to win the Sun Belt before the season. Drexel over Rossmount 84-51. Drexel's now 4-3. Yale over Western Michigan 73-51. Yale 4-3, Western Michigan 4-3. Grand Canyon over Illinois State 68-63. Grand Canyon 3-5. Illinois State 2-4. South Florida over Loyola Chicago 66-55. USF 3-2. Loyola 3-3. Miami of Ohio over Drake 67-59. Miami of Ohio 4-1. Drake 4-2. So the Red Hawks off to a nice start. Bucknell over Seattle 77-70. Bucknell 3-4. Seattle 2-5. Dayton over Georgia 80-61. I thought Georgia was going to win this game. I was wrong. Dayton's 4-0. Georgia 4-1. Dayton has a chance to get to the Maui title game. We'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. Western Kentucky over Fordham 69-64. Western Kentucky 6-1. Fordham 4-2. Louisiana over Detroit Mercy 81-62. Louisiana 4-2. Detroit 1-4. Virginia Tech upsets number 3 Michigan State 71-66 in Maui. Virginia Tech is 6-0. Michigan State 3-2. That was a stunner. And it's funny because I actually thought Vatek was going to cover the spread. I didn't think they were going to win outright. So credit to Mike Young. He's come in there and done a fantastic job so far with that Hokies team. George Mason over Old Dominion 60-53. George Mason 6-1. Old Dominion 3-3. Wright State over Weber State 72-51. Wright State 5-1. Weber State 1-3. Loyola Maryland over IUPUI 81-77. Loyola 3-3. IUPUI 2-4. Cincinnati over Valpo 81-77 in overtime. Cincy 4-2. Valpo 4-3. Pitt over Kansas State 63-59. Pitt 5-2. Kansas State 4-1. Number 10 Ohio State over Kent State 71-52. Ohio State 6-0. Kent State 5-1. So that was Kent State's first loss. Number 17 Tennessee over Chattanooga 58-46. Tennessee 5-0. Chattanooga drops to 3-3. Number 20 VCU over Alabama State 70-62. Or 78-62, I should say. VCU 6-0. Alabama State 0-5. Florida State over Chicago State 113-56. Florida State 5-1. Chicago State 3-4. Butler over Mizzou 63-52. Butler 6-0. Mizzou 4-2. So Butler's still undefeated. Richmond over Wisconsin. That's a pretty big upset. 60-52. Richmond 5-0. Wisconsin 4-2. That's a bad loss for the Badgers there in the Legends Classic at Barclays Center. Lipscomb over Texas Tech 78-65. Lipscomb 3-4. Tennessee Tech 2-6. Winthrop over Pithier 127-83. Winthrop's now 4-3 on the year. Northern Kentucky over Midway 86-56. Northern Kentucky's 5-2. Arkansas over Georgia Tech 62-61 in overtime on a game-winning shot by Mason Jones with 1/10 of a second left in overtime. Arkansas still unbeaten at 6-0, and Georgia Tech's 2-2. Nebraska over Washington State 82-71. Nebraska 3-2. Washington State 2-3. LaSalle over Murray State 75-64. LaSalle 2-2. Murray 3-2. Vandy over Southeast Louisiana 78-70. Vandy 5-1. Southeast Louisiana 2-5. Nevada over Bowling Green 77-62. Nevada 5-3. Bowling Green 5-2. Omaha over Southern 78-51. Omaha 4-3. Southern 2-4. Green Bay over Cal State Northridge 85-84. Green Bay 2-3. Northridge 0-7. Northern Illinois over Oakland 74-50. Northern Illinois 6-2. Oakland 4-3. Texas State over Abilene Christian 61-56. Texas State 5-2. Christian 2-4. Austin Peay over SC State 92-66. Austin Peay 3-3. South Carolina State 2-4. Bama A&M over Troy 80-66. Bama A&M 1-5. Troy's 1-6. Oral Roberts over Southwest Christian 99-45. Oral Roberts is 3-4. Campbell over Jacksonville 60-57. Campbell 4-1. Jacksonville 3-5. Texas Rio Grande over A&M International 79-52. Rio Grande's now 2-4 on the year. Arkansas Pine Bluff over Champions Christians 75-67. Pine Bluff gets their first win. They're 1-5. Indiana over Louisiana Tech, 88-75. Indiana 6-0. La Tech 4-2. So, Archie Miller off to a good start this year with Indiana. Northwestern beats Bradley 78-51. Northwestern, as a dog, wins outright. They're 3-2. Bradley 4-2. Number 4, Kansas over Chaminade 93-63 in Maui. Kansas 4-1. Montana over Texas Southern 74-62. Montana 2-4. Southern 1-5. Number 18, Auburn over New Mexico 84-59. Auburn has just been a beast. They're 6-0. New Mexico's 5-2. Stanford over Oklahoma 73-54. This one surprised me. Stanford 7-0, so a fantastic start for Stanford. Oklahoma suffers their first loss. They're 5-1. San Diego State over Tennessee State 62-49. San Diego State 6-0. Tennessee State 3-3. BYU defeats UCLA 78-63. BYU 4-2. UCLA 4-2. Today's slate, there's a couple finals already. Gulf Coast Showcase, Drake over Northeastern 59-56. Drake's 5-2, Northeastern 3-4. Colorado State over Loyola Chicago 61-60. Colorado State 4-3, Loyola 3-4. About to go final at the end there of ESPNU in Orlando. Western Michigan and Seattle. Second half, Tennessee Martin and Gardner-Webb. First half, Murray State, Weber State, and just got underway, New Mexico State and South Florida. 2:30 ESPN2, Georgia and number 3 Michigan State from the Maui. Michigan State's giving a whopping 14. The best player on the court could be Anthony Edwards in this game. It's not impossible that that's the case. But that said, the better team is Sparty. This is a good bounce back spot, so give me Sparty minus the 14. I think they win by, let's say, 17. Yale Bucknell and ESPNU. Yale's favored by 3.5 in Orlando. I think Yale wins and covers. Portland State hosts Scrambling at 3 o'clock. Hampton, San Francisco at 3 o'clock. BU and Northern Colorado and Cancun. Northern Colorado is favored by 1.5. I'm taking BU to win outright as a dog. 4 o'clock, Louisiana and UC Irvine. In Vegas, Irvine's favored by 7. I think that they win, but Louisiana covers. 5 o'clock, Brown and UMass Lowell. Miami of Ohio, South Alabama. Old Dominion, Washington State from the Cayman Islands. Old Dominion's actually favored by 2.5. I think Washington State wins this one. I just don't love Old Dominion this year. And I think that Washington State is capable of winning this game. So give me Washington State getting the 2.5. I think they win the game on the court. 5 o'clock ESPNU, UCLA and Chaminade. I'm getting Chaminade favored by 21.5. That can't be right. That can't be right. Chaminade's not favored in this game. UCLA is the better team, better coach. As good of a non-Division I school Chaminade is, but they always tend to lose in the Maui. But I think they did beat Cal last year, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, UCLA should win this game going away. They're the more talented team than Chaminade, and they'll get into the fifth place game. So give me UCLA there. Caldwell and Norfolk State. ESPN2 in Barclays Center, Wisconsin and New Mexico. Wisconsin's favored by 6. New Mexico is not a bad team. I think that they can hang around, but I still think Wisconsin's better, and I think they'll win and cover. A good bounce-back spot there for them. Cayman Islands, IUPUI, and Southern at 5:30. IUPUI is giving 4.5. I'm going to take Southern in the points, but I'm going to say IUPUI wins. 6 o'clock, Wofford, Maryland Eastern. Wichita, South Carolina on CBS Sports Network from Cancun. Wichita's giving 4. They're undefeated. They're playing very well. Frank Martin's team always tends to get up for these types of games and always loses to the lesser teams. So I'm going to take South Carolina plus the 4, and I think they win the game outright. So give me South Carolina plus the 4 to hand Greg Marshall's team their first loss of the season. Western Illinois and Ball State, 7 o'clock, App State and East Tennessee. Utah Valley, Mount St. Mary's in the BBN Showcase from Knott Arena. And I think that this game's going to be competitive. Utah Valley is just better, though, all around. I think that line's too small, actually, although I do think, like I said, it'll be competitive, but I think Utah State wins going away a little bit. Greensboro, High Point, Cornell Navy, Coppin State, James Madison, Emory and Henry and UNC Wilmington. Fairleigh Dickinson, Notre Dame. Notre Dame should have no issue there. Bryant, New Hampshire. Arizona State, Princeton. Mercer, St. Bonaventure. Florida Tech and Gulf Coast. Florida College, Stetson. Kaiser, FIU. New York, Anota and Binghamton. Furman and Alon in the battle for Atlantis. In the mainland tournament. But like I said, it's on the home campus. I think that Alon can hang around with Furman, but Furman's just better. Brevard the Citadel, NJIT Rutgers on Big Ten Network, Howard and American, St. Elizabeth, Delaware State, Gutierrez and VMI, ESPN News, Oklahoma, Missouri. This is in the losers bracket in the Hall of Fame Classic. From the Sprint Center, Missouri's favored by 1.5 points. I think Oklahoma bounces back and wins here. I think they're the better team. Missouri's only favored in this game because it's at the Sprint Center, so give me Oklahoma there to bounce back. Barclays Center, number 18, Auburn, and Richmond, 2 unbeaten's going at it. Auburn's favored by 9.5. I'm grabbing the 9.5 with the Tigers. They're a much better team than Richmond. I think New Mexico is arguably better than Richmond. So, I don't know how Richmond's 5-0. I think it's crazy. But I think Auburn wins going away. So, give me Auburn minus the 9.5 at 7:30 tonight on ESPN 2. Mart State and William & Mary, Cayman Islands, Georgia Mason, and Nebraska. It's a pick'em game. George Mason's been pretty good this year. I'm not big on Nebraska, so give me George Mason here. It would be considered an upset by some people because it's A-10 and Big Ten, but it's a pick'em right now, and I would pick George Mason because I'm not sold on this Nebraska team. LaSalle and Wright State in the Gulf Coast Showcase. Wright State's favored by 7. I think they win and cover. They're just better than LaSalle, although LaSalle's been a little better than I thought this year early on. Radford, Monmouth, St. Francis, Brooklyn, Little Rock, Lindenwood, Illinois, Loyola, Maryland, and Omaha, Northwestern State, UL Monroe, Houston Baptist, Houston, Central Michigan, DePaul. DePaul's undefeated. Central Michigan has 1 loss. That's a Fox Sports 1 game. I think DePaul wins, but I think Central Michigan can hang in there and stay within the number. Colgate, Green Bay, Canisius, UIC, Lamar, UAB, Blue Mountain, Nichols, NC Central, Southern Illinois. The big one, Dayton, Virginia Tech, 8 o'clock, ESPN, Dan Schulman and Jay Billis on the call. Dayton is favored by 4. These two teams are combined 10-0. Dayton being 4-0, Virginia Tech 6-0. This is tough. These two teams are very well coached. Anthony Grant's off to a good start this year at Dayton. He's kind of like remaking himself as a figure in the sport after being fired a few years ago from Alabama. And really has got Dayton in a good spot after Archie Miller left. Virginia Tech obviously has a new coach in Mike Young. He's 6-0. The best player on the court in this game will probably be Dayton's Obi Toppin, who is really, really good. But give me the Hokies plus the 4. I don't know if they'll win the game outright for sure, but I just think that getting points for Virginia Tech's enticing. I know there's a letdown potential with them and Dayton best player on the court. So I get all the reasons to pick Dayton, but give me Virginia Tech getting to 4, and I think they do win the game outright, but I don't feel super about it. So give me Virginia Tech plus 4 there. Cancun, you have Northern Iowa and West Virginia, 8:30 CBS Sports Network. West Virginia is giving 6. Northern Iowa 6-0, West Virginia 4-0. Bob Huggins' team really hasn't played anybody significant yet other than Pitt, and they won going away at Pitt, and Pitt is a team that's been very Jekyll and Hyde. They lose to Nichols, and they beat Kansas State. So I don't know what to make of that Pitt win yet for the Mountaineers. Although it kind of did look better because they went out and beat Kansas State yesterday, and then Pitt also beat Florida State on the first night of the season. But this was a tough line here. I I'm going to take West Virginia to win the game. Jermaine Haley has been solid for them. They have a really good freshman, Oscar Tishby. And then you have Jordan McCabe as a point guard. Trey Burrow has been solid for Northern Iowa. I'm going to take the Mountaineers to win. But this number is very tricky, which makes me lean Northern Iowa plus the points. But I'm going to say Mountaineers by 4, and they barely survive to move on. And maybe they'll see Wichita or South Carolina. Stephen F. Austin against Duke, 9 o'clock on the ACC Network. Duke should have no issue there. Colorado Christian Montana State, Wyoming TCU from Vegas. TCU's giving 15. I think that number's too big. Give me Wyoming plus the points, but TCU wins. Belmont and Eastern Washington, 9:30. You have North Dakota against North Central. 9:30 ESPN 2, Stanford and Butler. That's a fantastic game at the Sprint Center. Butler's favored by 3.5. I lay the 3.5 with Butler. I think they're better than Stanford. This is a really good game. What I learned early on in the season is that I think both these teams are capable of making the NCAA tournament. I won't be surprised at this point if they both get in with these two good starts. The winner of this game, I think, has a leg up. And I think that's going to be Butler. I think that they have the better head coach. And I think that Kamara Baldwin will be the best player in the court, as well as Tyrell Terry has played for Stanford this year. So give me Butler minus the 3.5. And I think they win this game by 7. 10 o'clock, SAU Edwardsville and Pacific. North Dakota State, Idaho. Pac-12 Network, UC Davis and Cal. Jackson State, UNLV. Longwood and UC Riverside. 10:30 ESPN. Number 4, Kansas and BYU in the second round of Maui. Kansas is given 11. I think Kansas wins and covers. BYU's not a terrible team from the West Coast Conference. They're normally the third best team in that conference and would upset Gonzaga or St. Mary's. But give me Kansas minus the points. I think they win this game by 15. Sam Houston State and Cal State Bakersfield. And at 11:30 on ESPN2 from Vegas, number 21 Colorado and Clemson. Colorado's giving 4.5. I think they win and cover. They're the better team. They're ranked. Colorado's much better than I thought they were going to be. I think I had them in the tournament before the year. I don't really remember. I was higher on Arizona State than them, but I was obviously proven wrong because Colorado beat Arizona State in China a few weeks ago, and then Colorado's ranked. So give me Colorado minus 4.5. I think they win this game by double digits. Now we'll talk some NBA. That was a long college basketball segment, I know, because obviously with Maui going on and Cancun and all the fun stuff. So the slate last night for the National Basketball Association. Nets over to Cavs 108-106. Brooklyn is 9-8. Cleveland 5-12. Pistons over to Magic 103-88. Detroit 6-11. Orlando 6-10. Pacers over to Grizzlies 126-114. Indiana 10-6. Memphis 5-11. Heat over to Hornets 117-100. Miami 12-4. Charlotte 6-12. Celtics over to Kings 103-102. Boston 12-4. Sacramento 7-9. Timberwolves over to Hawks 125-113. Minnesota 9-8. Atlanta 4-13. I can't believe how bad the Hawks are. I was way wrong about Atlanta. Holy shit. Raptors over to 76ers 101-96. Raptors 12-4. Philly 11-6. So my best bet wins, and that was an easy play for me last night. Trailblazers over the Bulls 117-94. Portland 6-12. Chicago 6-12. Bucks over the Jazz 122-118. Milwaukee 14-3. Utah 11-6. Lakers over the Spurs 114-104. LA 15-2. Best record in the league. That's 8 straight wins for the Lakers. San Antonio 6-12. Thunder over the Warriors 100-97. OKC 6-10. Golden State 3-15. Only 2 games on the slate tonight. 8:30 NBA TV. Clippers Mavericks. That's a fantastic game. Clippers giving 1.5. I'm taking the Mavericks in the points, and I think the Mavs win on the court. They're the best player on the court in this game, perhaps, in Luka Doncic. Dare I say it? I do think he'll be the best player on the court tonight because I have a prediction. I think Kawhi sits. I just have a funny feeling that it's going to be announced that Kawhi Leonard won't play tonight, and the Mavericks will be favorites by the time this game tips off. So give me the Mavericks getting a point and a half in their home building. This is the biggest game of their season so far, in my opinion. As big as that Lakers game was on that Friday night, this is equally an even bigger game because the Mavs, this is later in the season, Paul George and Kawhi and Luka, and I think the secret's out on Luka Doncic that he's a top 10 player, maybe even the top 5 player at this point. So it should be a fun one down there in Dallas tonight. 9 o'clock Wizards, Nuggets, Denver's giving 10.5. No feel for it. Maybe I'd take the points with the Wiz, but an obvious play here would be the over for sure. Now we'll talk some NHL hockey. Last night's slate was pretty interesting. Some overtime games, some upsets, and whatnot. Rangers over the Wild 3-2 in overtime on a goal by Tony DeAngelo. Rangers 11-9-2. Minnesota 9-11-4. Lightning over the Sabres 5-2. Tampa 12-7-2. Buffalo 11-10-3. What happened to the Sabres? They got to such a great start. Flyers over the Canucks 2-1. Philly 12-7-5. Vancouver 12-9-4. Flames over the Penguins 3-2 in overtime on a goal by Jake Getzel. Pittsburgh 13-7-4. Calgary 11-12-4. Blue Jackets over the Suns 1-0. Columbus 10-9-4. Ottawa 11-12-1. Preds over the Blues 3-2 in a shootout. Nashville 11-9-3. St. Louis 14-5-6. Stars over the Golden Knights 4-2. Dallas 15-8-2. Vegas 11-11-4. Wow, I'm surprised that Vegas is just 500 at this point. Ducks over the Islanders 3-0 as the Islanders' point streak finally comes to an end at 17 as they drop to 16-4-2. Anaheim 11-11-3. Sharks over the Kings 4-3 in overtime on a goal by Patrick Marleau. San Jose 13-11-1. Kings 9-13-2. Only 3 games on tonight's slate. 7 o'clock you have the Bruins against the Canadiens. The Wild against the Devils. 8 o'clock NBCSN. Stars Blackhawks. Kenny Albert, Pierre Maguire probably on the call. Dallas has been red hot. Smoking hot. And I think they'll go in to Chicago and win this game. I don't know if it'll be convincing. I think the Blackhawks will stay in it. It's a pick 'em. But I think the better team right now is the Dallas Stars. They've been hot. Meanwhile, Chicago has been kind of blah. So give me the Stars to win. I'm going to say it's a little bit closer than people think. Maybe they get an empty netter late. 5-3 Dallas seems like a realistic final score in that contest. Now I'm going to go through tonight's college football slate and pick the 2 games. 2 Maction games. Bull spots on the line. So it should be fun. You have Ohio and Akron at 6 o'clock on ESPN+. Plus, Ohio's giving 28. The over-under is 53. This is really tough. Akron covered last week against Miami of Ohio, by the way, on the road. But, like I said, this is tough. Ohio last week was in kind of a game with Bowling Green. Bowling Green was scoring on them. So part of me wants to take the over and make a case that Ohio's offense is back on track a little bit. But Akron was playing some good D last week. And that number 28 is very big. And I want no part of Akron. So I am going to take the over 53. I think it's one that's going to be sweating out. I'm going to say that Ohio wins this game like 40-16 or something like that. Western Michigan and Northern Illinois. I believe that game is on ESPNU tonight. Let me double check. Yes, it is, because basketball's on 2, and the college football playoff rankings, and then college basketball again on ESPN afterwards. Western Michigan's giving a whopping 9. The over-under is 51. Western Michigan has the bowl spot locked up. Northern Illinois is no longer bowl eligible. So I'm going to take another over here. I think that these two teams are going to score. I think this game is going to be played into the 60s. So give me Western Michigan the win, like 35-24, 35-26 or something like that. So there's that for college football. Now we'll talk college bowls. My projections for week number 14. I had to make a lot of changes because some teams got eliminated from bowls and other teams have put themselves back into position to earn a bowl spot. So the college football playoffs for week 14, my projections are as followed. The Fiesta Bowl, number 2 Ohio State, number 3 Clemson. Peach Bowl, number 1 LSU against number 4 the Utah Utes. Yes, the Utah Utes. I have sneaking in there. With Oregon's loss, they look vulnerable. Utah's been looking better and better by the week. They've been flying under the radar. No one's talking about them. So, Utah is in there as my number 4 for right now. Rest of the New Year's 6 bowls. Cotton Bowl, I have Memphis and Alabama. Orange Bowl, Virginia and Penn State. The Rose Bowl, Oregon and Minnesota. And the Sugar Bowl, Georgia and Oklahoma. The rest of the bowl games, Bahamas Bowl, Southern Miss and Ohio. Frisco, Wyoming and Liberty. New Mexico, Louisiana Tech and Utah State. Cure, UCF and Georgia Southern. Boca Raton, Tulane and Miami of Ohio. Camellia, Central Michigan and Louisiana. Vegas, Boise and Charlotte. New Orleans, FAU and Appalachian State. Gasparilla, SMU and Western Kentucky. Hawaii, BYU and Nevada. And by the way, BYU's already accepted its bid, so that's the only lock done deal so far. Independence, UAB and Eastern Michigan. Quickly, North Carolina and Michigan State. Military, Temple and Florida State. Pinstripe, Wake and Illinois. Texas, Kansas State and Tennessee. Holiday, Michigan and Washington. Cheez-It, Notre Dame and Iowa State. Camping World, Virginia Tech and Oklahoma State. First Responder, Marshall and Texas. Music City, Louisville and Toledo. Redbox, Nebraska and Washington State. Belk, Miami and Kentucky. Sun, Pitt and Arizona State. Liberty, Cincinnati, Army. Arizona, Hawaii, Georgia State. Alamo, Baylor, USC. Citrus, Wisconsin, Florida. Outback, Iowa, Auburn. Birmingham, FIU and Navy. Gator, Indiana and A&M. Famous Idaho Potato, Buffalo Air Force. Armed Forces, Troy and San Diego State. And Mobile, Alabama, Western Michigan, and Arkansas State. Now we're going to do the college football playoff projections for week number 14. Some interesting teams I have in my projected rankings. So I'm going to start at the bottom, go from 25 to 7, and then do 1 through 6, just like how the committee does. This is how I think it's going to play out for this week. 25. The Air Force Falcons. This team finally needs some recognition, and I think they'll finally get it this week. 24. Navy Midshipmen. They get the bounce back win against SMU, so they take SMU's spot. 23, the Virginia Tech Hokies. I think that the committee puts somebody from the ACC in there, and they tend to favor Justin Fuente's team all the time. 22, the Appalachian State Mountaineers. App State, the best team in the Sun Belt this year. 21, the USC Trojans. Get the big win over UCLA. Hit the over in their win total. Their season's pretty much over unless if Utah somehow loses and then they go to the Pac-12 title game. But their season's not really over. They still have their bowl game, obviously. but it's over in terms of the regular season. 20s, Oklahoma State Cowboys. They got the win over West Virginia, so I think they'll remain in there. 19, Iowa Hawkeyes. Got the win over Illinois. I think they remain in there. 18, the Boise State Broncos. Boise State killed Utah State last week. Absolutely destroyed them. 17, the Cincinnati Bearcats. They have a big game coming up this week against the team I have number 16, which is the Memphis Tigers. So the winner of that game probably gets a New Year's Six Bowl, but they also would have to have a rematch in the AAC title game, perhaps, if Memphis wins, because there's a chance that Navy sneaks in there if Memphis loses. 15, I have the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. They've been playing a lot better since the loss against Michigan. 14, I have the Michigan Wolverines. They have a big one coming up against Ohio State. 13, the Wisconsin Badgers. They have a big one coming up against Minnesota. 12, I have the Auburn Tigers. They have perhaps their Super Bowl this Saturday against Matt Jones in Alabama. 11, I have the Baylor Bears. This is a team I forgot to include last week in these rankings. I apologize for that. I just slipped my mind forgetting Baylor. But I obviously should have had them in these rankings. I probably should have had them around that top 10-ish range. And I just realized I did forget somebody else this week, and it's the Florida Gators. I'm going to sneak them in the number 11 spot, actually. Move everybody down one, and I'm going to take out Air Force. And that sucks because Navy beat Air Force, and that's why Navy will be in here over Air Force. As badly as I'd like to see Air Force in there so they can get some recognition, but they lost to Navy, and that's how Navy gets the last spot. So I have Florida 11. I bumped Baylor down to 12 and Auburn to 13, etc., etc. So Florida, I just forgot the list for whatever reason. I always tend to do this, forget a team and feel like an idiot for that. But Florida is Florida State this week. They're in play for a New Year's Six. 10, I have the Oregon Ducks. Just suffered a elimination from playoff contention loss against Arizona State. 9, I have the Penn State Nittany Lions. Same with them. They suffered an elimination loss against Ohio State. 8, I have the Oklahoma Sooners. They move up courtesy of Penn State and Oregon losing, although they barely beat TCU. 7, Minnesota. The Gophers, they have a big one coming up against Wisconsin to keep their playoff hopes alive. 6, the Utah Utes. They move up one spot. I think the committee wants to see more from them. And I think that there's a chance they blow out Colorado and they blow out Oregon and get into the playoff. Because I don't know if they want to put Alabama without Tua in there. And I have Alabama at number 5. And by the way, this Utah projection is assuming some other possible results that you'll hear on tomorrow's podcast that I'm predicting. So Alabama 5, Georgia 4, Clemson 3, Ohio State 2, LSU 1. So I kind of went against what I said I was going to do. That's because I realized I forgot Florida and I got distracted. So again, playoff rankings, 25-1. Navy, Virginia Tech, Appalachian State, USC, Oklahoma State. 20, I have Iowa. 19, Boise State. 18, Cincinnati. 17, Memphis. 16, Notre Dame. 15, Michigan. 14, Wisconsin. 13, Auburn. 12, Baylor. 11, Florida. 10, Oregon. 9, Penn State. 8, Oklahoma. 7, Minnesota. 6, Utah. 5, Alabama. 4, Georgia. 3, Clemson. 2, Ohio State. And 1, LSU. And one regret that I'm going to have by the end of the night is not putting Florida ahead of Oregon, because obviously Auburn beat Oregon, but did not beat Florida. So that's a regret I might have later tonight, potentially. Guess the lines for week number 13 in the NFL. We have the Thanksgiving games this week, so that should be fun. So 12:30 in the afternoon, Bears, Lions on Thursday. Lions, I have giving 1 at home. It's actually Bears by 3. This is just ridiculous. I think that people are judging the Bears because they beat a bad Giants team. Bills, Cowboys. I have the Cowboys giving 7, and it's 6.5. It was actually 7 before, but it went down a half point. And the night game, the Saints at the Falcons. I have the Saints giving 7.5, and it's 7. Sunday, Jets at the Bengals. I have Jets by 7, but that was before it was announced that it was going to be Andy Dalton. So, I'm going to narrow it down to 6. And the line's still 3.5. Titans, Colts. I have the Colts by 3, and it's Colts by 2.5. Eagles at the Dolphins. I have Eagles by 6.5. It's 9.5. Packers, Giants. I have Packers by 7, and it's 6.5. Browns, Steelers. I have Steelers by 1. It's Browns by 1.5. Redskins, Panthers. I have Panthers by 7. It's 10. That's a lot. Bucks at the Jags. I have Bucks by 3. It's Jaguars by 1. 49ers, Ravens. I have Ravens by 3, and it's 6. Everybody and their brother loves the Ravens now, and they just keep destroying everybody. That's crazy that line's that high. Rams, Cardinals. I have the Rams by 4.5. It's Rams by 3. Chargers, Broncos. I have the Chargers by 2. It's Chargers by 2.5. Raiders, Chiefs. I have Chiefs by 6, and it's 10. That's crazy. Patriots, Texans, Sunday night. I have Patriots by 2.5, and it's 3. And Vikings, Seahawks. I have the Seahawks by 2.5, and it's Seahawks by 3. All right, best bet of the day brought to you by DraftKings. Interesting games tonight on the slate. We'll go to college basketball because that's where the best ones are. I'm going to jump back into the well and take Michigan State. I'll take San Francisco against Hampton. Some of these are actually afternoon games to watch. Wofford over MDes. Baylor, Western Illinois. Ball State, Western Illinois. Why do I have Baylor in my head? I don't know. James Madison over Coppin State. East Tennessee State, App State. American over Howard. We'll go with Furman over Elan. We will take Little Rock over St. Francis. We'll take DePaul over Central Michigan. We'll go with Yale Monroe over Northwestern State. And TCU over Wyoming. That's 12, so it's $1.37 plus wagering $5, payout of $11.84. That's it for the podcast today. I'll be back tomorrow for my last show before Thanksgiving. So no podcast on Thanksgiving. No podcast on Black Friday. No podcasts over the weekend. So a very busy one tomorrow. Going over all the games from today. Looking ahead to everything tomorrow and then for the long weekend. Also picks for college football and the NFL. NFL power rankings. And any other news that breaks in the world of sports. Tomorrow's podcast is probably going to be 2 hours. I'm calling it right now. So I hope you guys have a great day, everybody.